Evil has a way of disguising itself in plain uniforms, hiding behind the flashing red and blue lights that are supposed to mean protection. On a warm evening in Riverside Heights, the hum of cicadas filled the air while the sky glowed orange with the last light of the sun. It was the kind of evening when most people were thinking about family dinners, winding down, or enjoying the safety of home. But for Marcus Hale, safety was a myth that could be shattered in seconds. He sat behind the wheel of his aging Toyota Camry, shoulders loose but mind sharp, guiding the car along the familiar streets after a long day at the warehouse. To any casual eye, Marcus was just another working man heading home. What the world didn't see, what the officers who would soon cross his path couldn't even imagine, was the soldier buried beneath that quiet exterior, a Navy SEAL, whose life had once revolved around danger, survival, and split-second choices that meant life or death. That soldier wasn't supposed to exist anymore. Marcus had traded combat boots for steel-toed shoes, rifles for packing slips, and late-night raids for early morning shifts unloading trucks. He told himself he wanted peace, normalcy, and routine. He told his sister Leah, the fiery lawyer who never seemed to rest, that some men were meant to fight battles in the courtroom, not in the streets. But peace is fragile, especially when prejudice and power hunger stalk the roads like predators. It started with a patrol car a few vehicles behind him. At first Marcus brushed it off, just coincidence, but when he turned onto Maple Street, past the elementary school windows still bright with children's artwork, the car turned too. His jaw tightened. His speed was perfect, registration up to date, nothing to warrant attention. Yet the patrol car lingered like a shadow, edging closer every block. Marcus's military training whispered warnings through the back of his mind. He checked his mirrors, noted the dent in the bumper, the way the driver leaned forward like a hunter preparing to pounce. His pulse slowed, not quickened, as instinct settled in. It wasn't fear that gripped him, but readiness. Flashing lights finally ignited behind him, washing the concrete barriers of a nearby construction site in red and blue. Marcus guided the Camry to the side, pulling neatly alongside the barriers. His hands stayed visible, steady on the steering wheel, posture calm. He had been through countless checkpoints overseas, but this felt more dangerous than any war zone. Two officers stepped out, boots striking the pavement with exaggerated force. One was tall, broad-shouldered, a flashlight in his grip, even though the sun hadn't yet dipped below the horizon. The other was shorter, heavier, his sneer visible even from a distance. They moved with a swagger that was less about authority and more about intimidation. License and registration, the tall one barked, his tone dripping with disdain. He shone the flashlight directly into Marcus's eyes. "My license is in my back pocket," Marcus replied evenly. "I'm going to reach for it slowly." His voice was calm, controlled, every syllable deliberate. The shorter officer chuckled. "A man like you driving a car like this, sure it belongs to you." Marcus retrieved his wallet, movements slow, non-threatening, but the atmosphere was already poisoned. The officers weren't interested in paperwork, they wanted submission, they wanted fear. They wanted the same result that too many other men who looked like Marcus had suffered in silence. The license was snatched from his hand. "Marcus Hale," the tall officer read aloud, stretching the name into an accusation. "You expect us to believe you live in this neighborhood?" "I've lived here 2 years," Marcus answered, still calm though the knot in his stomach was tightening. "Step out of the vehicle," the shorter one demanded, his hand resting near his holstered gun. The world slowed. Marcus complied, every motion measured, stepping out into the long shadows cast across the road. The construction workers nearby had stopped packing up. They watched silently, their yellow vests glowing in the strobe of the patrol lights. Witnesses. But witnesses didn't always mean protection. The tall officer leaned in close, his breath hot against Marcus's ear. "You won't be going home tonight," he whispered, low enough that only Marcus could hear. That was the moment. The words weren't a threat, they were a promise. And promises like that Marcus had heard before, in deserts and jungles, whispered by enemies who thought they had the upper hand. Years of training surged back like a tidal wave. His mind split into layers of calculation: distance to the barriers, the angle of the officers' stances, the positions of the construction crew. When the officer's hand moved for his weapon, instinct roared louder than fear. Marcus twisted, fast and fluid, and the soldier hidden beneath the warehouse worker came alive again. The first shot echoed like thunder. The tall officer stumbled, disbelief etched on his face as he fell back. The shorter one panicked, spraying bullets wildly, his aim fractured by fear. Marcus moved with precision, rolling behind the barrier, his return fire controlled, exact. Chaos erupted, construction workers scattered, some ducking behind equipment, others filming with trembling hands. The air filled with the acrid sting of gunpowder, the sharp metallic ring of shell casings against asphalt. Marcus pressed against the concrete, his mind laser-focused, his body a machine of survival. This wasn't the life he had chosen anymore, but survival never asked permission. The shorter officer's voice cracked through the chaos. Officer down, officer down. His panic betrayed him. He had expected an easy target, a compliant man to bully, not a warrior who had once been trained to fight in the world's deadliest corners. By the time the smoke cleared, silence pressed heavy against the broken evening. One officer lay bleeding, the other fleeing, his courage shattered. Marcus stayed low, breathing measured, pistol steady in his grip. His white shirt was stained with dust and sweat, his cargo pants torn at the knee. He hadn't asked for this fight, but it had found him all the same. The quiet man who just wanted peace had been forced into battle again, and in the gathering dusk, the truth became clear: predators had become prey. The world has a cruel way of twisting stories. By the time Marcus slipped away from the construction site, the flashing lights of reinforcements were already cutting through the dusk. He didn't need to stay to know how it would be framed. He had been in too many places where power rewrote truth before the ink of reality was dry. He drove with steady hands, every muscle tight but controlled, until the Camry rolled into his sister's driveway. Gravel crunched beneath the tires, and Leah burst through her front door before he even cut the engine. Her eyes, dark and blazing like their mother's once had been, locked on him. Inside, she hissed, pulling him by the arm. Her living room, normally neat and orderly, was chaos. Papers scattered, laptop open, wine glass knocked on its side. She had already seen the first flashes of the story on local news. "They're saying you opened fire unprovoked," she snapped, pacing. "That you tried to kill 2 officers in cold blood." Marcus sank onto her couch, his chest heaving with exhaustion. "They whispered it in my ear, Leah. Said I wouldn't be going home tonight. One of them pressed the gun into my ribs. I didn't shoot first, I survived." Leah's jaw trembled. She was a lawyer, trained to channel fury into arguments, but this was her brother. "We need evidence, witnesses, something they can't bury." As if summoned by her words, her laptop chimed. A shaky body cam clip had leaked online, the beam of a flashlight in broad daylight, the officers crowding Marcus against the barrier. The whispered threat caught faintly in the audio. Then the moment of the draw, the snap decision, the chaos that followed. Leah's eyes widened. "It's all there. The whole thing." Marcus leaned over her shoulder, watching the comments flood in. He defended himself. "Police tried to kill him. This is what racism looks like." The tide of opinion was shifting. Social media buzzed with outrage, hashtags forming like wildfire. Protesters were already gathering outside the precinct, signs demanding justice, voices demanding accountability. Marcus had gone from hunted man to reluctant symbol overnight, but in a dim office across town, Lieutenant Rohr watched the same footage with icy fury. A heavy-set man with years of power calcified into arrogance, he clenched his glass of bourbon until it shattered in his hand. Blood dripped onto polished floors as he snarled to his secretary, "Scrub it. Every server, every platform, buy the witnesses, threaten the reporters. I don't care what it takes. This ends now." The secretary hesitated, file trembling in her hand. "Sir, we found his records." Marcus Hale wasn't just a Navy SEAL, he was recruited into a classified Delta Force detachment. 5 years of black ops. His combat ratings are off the charts. Rohr's face paled. "We stirred up a ghost," he muttered. "A man trained to survive anything. And now the public thinks he's a hero." Back in Leah's house, the noise of chanting filtered through her window. Marcus sat with his head in his hands, the weight of years pressing down on him. "I just wanted peace," he whispered. "Unload my trucks, drive home, live quietly." But they wouldn't let me. Leah touched his shoulder. "You're not alone now. People are rising because of you. You've become a symbol whether you want it or not." Marcus stared at the crowd outside, the flicker of protest signs in the distance. He didn't feel like a hero. He felt like a man whose past refused to stay buried, and yet a spark of hope glimmered. Maybe his survival could light something larger than himself. But hope is dangerous. As cameras rolled outside precinct walls, officers in riot gear prepared for confrontation. Protesters chanted his name, while media outlets split the narrative in half. Civil rights activists hailed Marcus as proof of systemic abuse. Others painted him as a rogue soldier turned domestic terrorist. That night, Leah's phone buzzed relentlessly. Journalists, activists, attorneys all wanted a statement. Marcus shook his head. Anything I say will be twisted, they'll make it fit their story. They already are, Leah snapped. On the television, Rohr stepped to a podium. His voice was smooth, practiced, rehearsed with care. At approximately 2:30 p.m., two of our finest conducted a routine traffic stop. The suspect, Marcus Hale, opened fire without provocation, critically wounding Officer Donnelly. Mr. Hale is a trained military operative, with a history of violence. He poses an immediate threat to public safety. Behind him, screens displayed Marcus's license photo beside bold red letters, "Armed and Dangerous." Marcus clenched his fists, fury burning low in his chest. They're not just lying about what I did, they're lying about who I am. Once fear takes hold, truth won't matter anymore. Leah's face hardened. Then we fight harder. We find more footage, more witnesses. We show the world what they're trying to bury. Marcus paced to the window, pulling the curtain aside just enough to glimpse the swarm of cameras and vans gathering on her street. Every move, every breath, was already under scrutiny. He was no longer just a man, he was a headline, a narrative, a symbol too powerful to be allowed to exist. Somewhere in the city, armored vehicles rumbled to life, orders were given, streets would soon be blocked, homes searched, families terrorized, all in the name of public safety. And in the heart of it all, Marcus Hale, a man who had tried to leave war behind, was about to be thrust into a new kind of battlefield. He didn't know it yet, but the choice to fight or to hide was already gone. The system had declared war on him, and the only question left was how long he could survive it. Dawn arrived with the thunder of helicopters, and the rumble of armored vehicles. Marcus sat in Leah's basement, watching through a narrow window as black-clad figures moved between suburban homes. The quiet street, where children once rode bikes, was now a militarized zone. Officers dragged neighbors onto lawns, zip-tying hands, shouting orders, smashing doors without warrants. Leah hurried down the stairs with a thermos of coffee, her face pale but defiant. They're calling it voluntary compliance checks, but anyone who refuses gets marked as suspicious. Marcus took the coffee but kept his eyes on the street. He saw Mr. Chen, the elderly gardener who had once shared vegetables with him, shoved against his garage door while officers tore through his yard. He saw a teenage boy pinned to a squad car, his mother screaming. He saw fear spreading like smoke through the neighborhood, choking every voice that dared to speak. They're not looking for justice, Marcus muttered. They're sending a message. They want people too afraid to stand by me. Leah's laptop pinged with messages from civil rights groups. The ACLU wanted to escalate to federal court. Journalists demanded interviews. Protest organizers begged Marcus to appear publicly, to stand with them. But Marcus knew what his training told him. A man who shows his face in the middle of a manhunt becomes a target. Instead, he slipped through shadows. That evening he met Leah and Daniel Cross, an investigative journalist known for exposing corruption, in the underbelly of an empty parking garage. Daniel was older, cautious, his eyes sharp with the weariness of someone who knew truth was a dangerous weapon. He shook Marcus's hand firmly. "Thank you for trusting me," Daniel said. "Most men in your position would have run, but you're not most men." Marcus spoke quietly, his words precise. He recounted the stop, the whispered threat, the moment he realized he'd been lured into an execution. Leah showed Daniel clips she had salvaged from nearby cameras, the officers drawing first, the shove against the barrier, the unmistakable press of a gun into Marcus's ribs. Daniel's eyes narrowed. "I've been investigating Donnelly for months. There are other men, 3 of them, who disappeared after being pulled over in similar ways. No charges, no bodies, just gone. You were supposed to be the 4th. Silence weighed heavy in the garage. Marcus shifted, instincts sharp, ears tuned to every creak of concrete. "If that footage goes public, it might save me, but it will put a target on your back." Daniel's jaw tightened. "I've had targets before, but this story needs to be told. People need to see the truth." They didn't know that far above, Lieutenant Rohr was already plotting his counterattack. That night, Daniel broadcast the footage. Clear security clips showed Marcus complying, hands visible, until Donnelly drew first and whispered his deadly promise. Enhanced audio carried the words for millions to hear. "You won't be going home tonight." The nation erupted. Hashtags trended. Donations flooded in. Protests swelled in cities across the country. For a moment it felt like truth might win. Leah clutched Marcus's arm, her eyes brimming with hope. We can fight this, we can win. But Marcus had fought too many wars to trust hope, and he was right. At the peak of the broadcast's reach, masked men stormed the news studio. Cameras kept rolling as chaos erupted. Daniel shouted to his crew, "Keep filming," even as Roar himself entered the frame, unmasked, eyes cold. Gasoline splashed across the floor. The feed cut out just as flames roared, leaving millions staring at blank screens. Marcus and Leah watched in horror as helicopters later showed the building engulfed in fire. Daniel had been silenced, his sacrifice burned into ash. Grief twisted in Marcus's chest, but rage burned hotter. He died trying to tell the truth. They won't stop until everyone who stands up is crushed. Days blurred. Marcus became both ghost and symbol, hidden from sight, yet painted across every screen as a terrorist. Roar's machine pushed its lies relentlessly, but still, the people resisted. Protesters wore shirts with Marcus's face. Signs demanded reform. Videos of police brutality flooded the internet, each one echoing his story. Finally Marcus agreed to meet a contact, who claimed to hold Daniel's backup files, damning evidence of corruption that even Roar couldn't bury. Leah begged him not to go. "It's a trap," she warned, her voice trembling. Marcus pulled on a dark jacket, sliding a pistol into its holster. "Maybe, but if there's a chance to finish what Daniel started, I have to try." The warehouse district was silent when he arrived, too silent. His instincts screamed danger with every step. The second-floor lights blazed on suddenly, blinding him. "Police, don't move." Dozens of officers surged from the shadows. Tasers cracked, batons swung. Marcus moved like water, fluid and ruthless. A shelf crashed into one group, an elbow drove into another's ribs. Years of training carried him through a blur of strikes, disabling men twice his size. For every officer who fell, two more closed in, and then Carter appeared, baton in hand. The strike to Marcus's skull dropped him to his knees. Darkness swallowed him as cold cuffs snapped around his wrists. When his vision returned, cameras glared down, hungry for the staged victory. Roar stood in the shadows, a smirk cutting across his face. "A dangerous fugitive has been apprehended," he told the press. "Our streets are safe again." But Marcus's glare told a different story. Blood trickled down his temple, his muscles throbbed with exhaustion, but his spirit was unbroken. Predator and prey had changed places, yet the war was far from over. As guards dragged him away, headlines exploded, "Cop killer caught." But hidden beneath the spectacle, millions who had seen the truth still whispered his name, still carried the story Daniel had died to tell. Marcus Hale had been caged, but his fight had only begun. Because the real battle wasn't in the streets or the cells, it was in the hearts of those who had seen what power tried to erase, and refused to forget.